What if the key to unshakable inner peace that was forged in the chaos of war? What if the blueprint for mental dominance wasn't buried in modern psychology, but etched into the private journals of a Roman emperor? This isn't philosophy for academics. This is battle-tested wisdom for high performers. For you. Today we unlock Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, a rare manuscript that teaches you how to govern your thoughts, conquer emotional chaos, and operate at elite levels under pressure. In a world addicted to reaction, you'll learn how to rule from within. By the end of this episode, you won't just understand Stoicism, you'll command it. We've engineered a strategic knowledge check at the end, designed to lock these principles into your subconscious and elevate your clarity, focus, and resilience on demand. And stay with us, because we've embedded a life-changing surprise just after our key insights. This is not a book review, it's a mental transformation. Let's get to it.
Okay, let's unpack this. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.
Yeah.
That's Marcus Aurelius. And it hits you right away, doesn't it? This feeling we all have, wanting some inner stability when everything outside feels, well, chaotic.
Yeah, exactly. And it's precisely that idea, that inner strength, that's at the heart of what we're exploring today, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations.
Right.
We're taking a deep dive into the mind of the man behind these thoughts and the core philosophy that guided him. And our guide for this is a modern edition with a really insightful introduction by Gregory Hayes.
And it's so important to remember this wasn't some, official doctrine for everyone.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Meditations was Aurelius's private journal, his own way of reminding himself of key ideas while dealing with immense pressure. And he was the Roman emperor 161 to 180 AD. I mean, just think about the weight of that.
Yeah.
These are the personal reflections of someone with enormous power, wrestling with leadership, ethics, right there in the moment.
And if you think about that, what really stands out is how raw and unfiltered these insights are. They weren't speeches polished for an audience. They were internal dialogues. It gives us this incredibly intimate and honest look at how one of history's most powerful figures tried to find inner peace while carrying huge responsibilities.
Absolutely. So if you've ever felt that maybe philosophy seems a bit overwhelming, but you're still looking for practical wisdom you can actually use,
Yeah.
then this deep dive is definitely for you. Think of it as maybe a shortcut to understanding a really influential piece of
A
writing.
useful shortcut.
Our mission today is to really get who Marcus Aurelius was, the things that shaped his worldview, and the foundational ideas in Meditations that still, hold so much weight today.
Okay, so Marcus Aurelius. What immediately strikes you is how unexpected his path to becoming emperor actually was.
Right.
He was born Marcus Annius Verus in 121 AD, and it wasn't like he was destined for the throne from birth. People often bring up Plato's idea of the philosopher king for Marcus.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
But, as Hayes points out, Aurelius himself probably wouldn't have liked that label. He really saw himself more as a student of philosophy, always learning.
And his background, his education, that's really interesting too. He wasn't just any student.
No.
He had this top-tier education. And crucially, he was bilingual fluent in Greek and Latin. Hayes makes this great comparison, like a 19th century Russian aristocrat speaking French.
That's a good analogy.
So Marcus would have known Homer and Euripides just as well as Virgil and Cicero. Greek was really the language for intellectual stuff back then.
And that's such a vital point because, as Hayes really emphasizes, even though people tried to start a Latin philosophical tradition, the big foundational texts, Plato, Aristotle, Zeno, Epicurus, they were all in Greek.
Right.
So if you wanted to seriously engage with philosophy, you had to master Greek. It says a lot that Meditations itself was written in Greek.
So his path to power, it took a big turn around 137 AD, right?
Yeah, that was the key moment.
Wow.
Emperor Hadrian didn't have a direct heir. He initially chose Lucius Cionius Commodus, but then Commodus died unexpectedly. So Hadrian pivoted and chose the senator Antoninus, who didn't have children. But there was a condition.
Ah, okay.
Antoninus had to adopt Marcus, who was his nephew by marriage, and also Commodus's young son, Lucius Verus. So almost overnight, Marcus is suddenly in line to be emperor.
Wow. That's quite a shift.
It really was. And this adoption by Antoninus Pius wasn't just politically huge, it shaped him personally, too. his already impressive education got even more intense.
Right.
He had famous tutors like Herodes Atticus for Greek rhetoric and Marcus Cornelius Fronto for Latin oratory. And it's fascinating because Fronto's letters actually survived.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they give us this glimpse into their relationship. You can see Fronto being, well, maybe a little disappointed that Marcus was leaning more towards philosophy than, the art of public speaking.
Ah, interesting. So Antoninus dies in 161 AD. What happens then?
Well, Marcus, apparently honoring what Hadrian might have originally intended, immediately makes Lucius Verus his co-emperor.
Co-emperor. Okay. Now, Verus doesn't always get the best press in history, does he? He's often painted as this pleasure-seeking type.
Right, almost like a Nero figure sometimes. But Hayes offers a really valuable perspective here.
Okay.
He suggests that this negative view, which often comes from sources like the Historia Augusta, might be a bit unfair, maybe an oversimplification. Marcus's own writings and meditations don't really back up such a one-sided picture, but it does seem clear that Marcus was the senior partner.
The guiding influence.
Probably, yeah. Likely because of his age and the direct training he'd had under Antoninus.
Makes sense. But being emperor wasn't just about philosophy, obviously. He faced enormous challenges.
Absolutely huge challenges. We're talking about the Parthian War out in the east, a devastating plague, the Antonine plague that swept through the empire.
That sounds bad.
It was terrible. Then there was growing instability on the northern frontier, Germanic tribes pushing south.
Constant pressure.
And even a major rebellion led by Avidius Cassius, one of his top generals in the east.
Wow, so it wasn't exactly a peaceful reign.
Not at all. And this backdrop of constant crisis and pressure is absolutely crucial for understanding the feel, the tone, the themes that keep coming up in meditations.
Right.
It wasn't written in some quiet study during peacetime. It was composed amidst the daily grind of leadership during massive upheaval. And we shouldn't forget personal tragedies, too, like the death of his wife, Faustina.
Yeah, that's important context.
Yeah.
Then there's the whole succession issue.
Right. He ends up naming his own son, Commodus, as his heir.
Which broke that pattern of adopting capable successors.
Exactly. And Hayes points out the, unfortunate legacy of Commodus's reign. He's remembered mostly as a dissolute tyrant, just a stark contrast to his father. And that decision really led into a period of instability after Marcus died in 180 AD.
It's interesting, though, how even within all these big imperial events, you can still see hints of Marcus's personality in official documents that survived.
Yeah, Hayes highlights that. There's this meticulous attention to detail, a real awareness of linguistic precision.
Which connects back to his training with Fronto, you'd think.
Absolutely. And it connects to the careful phrasing we see in meditations. There's also some evidence suggesting he was interested in the welfare of vulnerable groups. Things like freeing slaves, guardianship of orphans.
But Hayes is careful about that.
He is. He rightly cautions against definitively saying specific policies came only from Marcus's philosophy. It's complex.
Okay. So we've got this picture of him now, unexpectedly emperor, deeply into philosophy, constantly dealing with crises, internal and external.
A very complex figure.
Right. So with that background said, let's really get into the core ideas of his philosophy, the stuff we find in meditations.
Okay. What's really insightful here is that while his philosophy is fundamentally Stoic, he actually very rarely uses the word Stoicism. Hayes notes he tends to refer more generally to philosophy.
Interesting.
But the influence of later Stoics is undeniable, especially Epictetus. Hayes describes Epictetus's discourses and Enchiridion as literary parallels to meditations, which is a great way to put it.
And Marcus knew Epictetus's work.
Oh, yes. He specifically thanks his mentor Rusticus for introducing him to Epictetus's teachings in Book 1.
Okay. And central to Stoicism, and so central to Aurelius, is this concept of the logos.
Precisely. The logos. As Hayes explains it, it's this kind of all-encompassing rational principle that governs the entire universe.
It sounds big.
It is. It's hard to capture in one English word. It includes rationality, the order of nature, providence, even God or the divine. Hayes draws that fascinating parallel to the start of John's Gospel. In the beginning was the Word, the logos being the source of creation.
Right, I see that connection.
Think of it as the underlying reason and order behind everything. The seasons changing, mathematical logic, everything. For Aurelius, understanding this order was key to accepting the way life flowed.
Okay, so everything's interconnected, follows this rational order.
Yeah.
But that raises the big question, doesn't it?
Free will.
Yeah. If everything is determined by this logos, this chain of cause and effect, where does our free will fit in?
The classic philosophical puzzle, and the Stoics definitely wrestled with it.
I bet.
Their answer, as Hayes explains it, was to define free will not as changing what happens outside us, but as voluntarily choosing to align our own will with what's inevitable.
Okay, how does that work?
There's the famous analogy of a dog tied to a moving cart.
Right.
The dog can choose to run alongside the cart smoothly, or it can resist and get dragged along anyway, but the cart is going where it's going.
So the outcome is set, but our choice is how we react.
Exactly. Our freedom lies in consciously choosing to accept and cooperate with this divine plan, the Logos. Even things that seem bad or negative from the Stoic perspective ultimately play a part in the overall good and harmony of the Logos' design.
Wow. That's a really different way to look at things. So this Logos, it's not just an abstract idea, it has a physical side too.
It does, according to the Stoics. They called its physical form pneuma. Yeah, like a vital breath or a mixture of fire and air that animates everything. Hayes even quotes Dylan Thomas to give a sort of poetic feel for this driving force.
So it's in everything.
Yes, even in supposedly inanimate objects, the pneuma provides the internal tension that holds them together, gives them structure. So everything is seen as a combination of inert matter and this animating pneuma.
And when something is destroyed?
That pneuma just gets reabsorbed back into the universal Logos.
Okay.
They even thought about this on a huge cosmic scale, with cycles of the whole universe being destroyed by fire and then reborn. They called it ekpyrosis.
Whoa, cosmic recycling.
Kind of, but this idea of vast cycles, even if it sounds abstract, really reinforced their view of constant change and how small individual events seem in the grand sweep of things.
Okay, so we have this overarching, rational, physical force, the Logos and its pneuma guiding everything. How did Marcus then translate this big cosmic picture into, like, practical advice for living day to day?
Well, Meditations isn't laid out like a textbook, but Hayes points out you can clearly see the three core disciplines of Stoicism running through it: perception, action, and will.
Okay, let's take those one by one. Perception.
Perception is basically about seeing things as they really are. Clearly, objectively, without layering our own judgments and emotions onto them, which can distort reality.
Stripping away the subjective reaction.
Precisely.
Okay. And the discipline of action.
Action really emphasizes that we're social beings by nature. We're participants in the Logos, we're citizens of the world, and that comes with duties.
Duties to others.
Yes. Marcus often reminds himself that humans were born to work together, to serve others, not just look out for ourselves. So our actions should aim for the common good, guided by justice and fairness in how we deal with people.
Right.
Now, Hayes makes an important clarification here.
Okay.
This didn't mean social equality as we might think of it today. Marcus, like most people then, saw society as hierarchical.
Okay. So it wasn't about treating everyone the same.
Not exactly the same, but justly within that structure. The ethical requirement was to treat others as they deserved based on their role in your relationship to them, always aiming for fairness.
That's a key distinction. Okay. And the third discipline, will.
The discipline of will focuses on our attitude towards everything outside our direct control.
Which, according to Stoics, is most things.
It's pretty much everything external, yes. Since the Logos governs all external events, those events themselves can't truly harm our inner self. It's our judgments about them, our interpretations, that cause us pain or distress.
So it's about acceptance.
Exactly. This is where the art of acquiescence comes in. It's a conscious acceptance of fate, seeing it as part of the Logos' overall good plan. Hayes mentions that phrase, "whatever happens is right," which sums up that core acceptance.
Even death?
Yes, even death is just seen as a natural, inevitable part of the cycle of change, something not to be feared but accepted.
And this idea of the fleeting nature of life, the temporary nature of everything, that comes up a lot in meditation, doesn't it?
Constantly. It's a major recurring theme. Hayes suggests this comes partly from Stoic doctrine, of course, but also maybe from literary influences and just Marcus's own deep reflections.
He seems really preoccupied with it.
He does. He frequently reminds himself how transient life is, how impermanent worldly status and possessions are. He urges himself not to fear death because it's just a natural part of this constant transformation.
Does he use specific examples?
Oh, yeah. He uses these powerful mental exercises. He reflects on the powerful courts of emperors before him, Augustus, Vespasian, Trajan. Where are they now?
Right.
Gone.
Exactly.
Yep.
Even the great philosophers of the past, he says they're all just dust and ashes now. It's a stark way to emphasize how temporary everything is.
So if everything external is temporary and ultimately not that important, what does hold lasting value for Marcus?
The focus shifts entirely inward. It's unwavering. True good fortune, real value lies in the quality of your own character.
Your inner self. Yes.
Yeah.
Your intentions, your actions, how you choose to respond. That's what truly matters, not the shifting sands of external circumstances. So cultivating virtues like self-control, justice, courage, that becomes the absolute top priority.
Okay. Now, we talked about Stoicism being the main foundation, especially Epictetus. Were there other significant influences on his thinking?
Oh, definitely. Book 1 of Meditations is basically a shout-out list, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of is.
It's a testament to all the people who shaped him, and Hayes does a great job highlighting the practical wisdom Marcus took from them.
Like what?
For example, he thanks Rusticus for steering him away from just fancy rhetoric towards real substance in his thinking, and he credits his adopted father, Antoninus, for showing him compassion, and also for sticking firmly to decisions once they were made rationally.
So real-life models for the virtues he valued.
Exactly. They weren't just abstract ideas. He saw them embodied in people he respected. Hayes also notes the broader influence of Plato and other Greek thinkers, plus literary works that probably informed how he thought and wrote about transience.
Right. Okay, this has been incredibly rich.
Mm-hmm.
If we had to boil it down, what are maybe 2 or 3 core insights from this deep dive that you think listeners could take away and really reflect on in their own lives?
Okay, well, firstly, I think, is that profound wisdom in focusing your energy where it counts on what's in your control.
Your thoughts, judgments, actions.
Exactly. While cultivating acceptance for external events, you can't change. I mean, that's just a timeless strategy for navigating uncertainty, isn't it?
It really is. What else?
Secondly, that constant emphasis on impermanence, how fleeting everything is, that can be a really powerful reminder to focus on what truly matters right now, in the present.
Which for Marcus was.
Cultivating your inner character and how you treat other people, your virtue and your contribution to the common good.
That's incredibly resonant. Yeah, it really is almost an aha moment, isn't it? To realize that these personal notes, written by a Roman emperor almost 2,000 years ago, can still offer such relevant, profound guidance for dealing with the complexities we face today. We aimed for a shortcut to being well-informed, and it feels like we've definitely uncovered some truly enduring wisdom here.
And that leads to a really crucial question, I think, for you, the listener.
Yeah.
Given the constant barrage of external information, the endless pressures of modern life, how might consciously making time for inner reflection, like Marcus Aurelius did, maybe provide a greater sense of grounding, a sense of clarity?
It's a really compelling point to chew on. And if life really is as fleeting as Aurelius constantly reminds himself, what does that truly mean for how we decide to prioritize our actions or values right now in this moment?
Big questions.
Definitely. This deep dive has really only scratched the surface of the insights packed into Meditations. We absolutely encourage you to explore it further yourself.
Yeah, there are many excellent translations out there.
And maybe revisiting some of the thinkers or works mentioned in Gregory Hayes' introduction could provide even more context and understanding. It's a rich source.
You've just encountered the mind of a warrior emperor. But hearing isn't mastery. And if you walk away now, it's not neutrality you're choosing. It's stagnation, weakness, decline. In this accelerating world, those who can't master their inner state will be enslaved by outer noise. Don't let these timeless principles fade into forgotten potential. Subscribe right now if you're serious about forging mental resilience that the world can't shake. Smash that like button if you refuse to be ruled by impulse. And connect through. The links below. Our digital vault is opening for those brave enough to walk this path. Because here, we don't discuss success. We engineer it. Up next, Angelina and I go deep, applying Aurelius's most elite strategies to real-life scenarios. And finally, the knowledge check. This is your proving ground. Your moment to rise above average and prove to yourself, and to us, that you don't just watch wisdom. You wield it. Next steps. Prove you're different. Take. The challenge now. 5 brutal questions. 1 mental transformation. Comment your score below. Top scorers unlock VIP access to our Stoic Success Vault next week, including elite tools and frameworks you won't find anywhere else. Don't just consume content. Ascend.